Welcome to Project 98.9. I'm Leigh, this is Sharkie. Last week I set myself 8 standards. I've had a crack at it for a week now.
Well, how are we going? That's the question on everyone's lips. Everyone watching this is sitting there on the edge of their seat going, what's he done? You're trying to get to 98.9 kilos, let's rehash that. So take us back to the starting point. What was when you first weigh in, where are you after a week?
Well, we don't want to make it all about it, but we are. Yeah, it's good for a start. 131 and a half I was. So the aim is to get down to 98.9, 35 weeks. So set myself 8 standards. Like the key for me is not necessarily how we go with the weight. The key is the standards. It's really interesting, and I'll share something on that in a minute. But so the 8 standards I've set myself, and you'd think I'd have them indelibly burned in here, but I don't yet. First one is 150 grams of protein. Second one's 1900 calories for the time being. So these standards can be adjusted if they need to be, if that's what research and best practice tells us to do. 2.5 litres of water a day. I've got a bean protocol that is around looking after my mind. I've got 10,000 steps. And what have I missed? Fast till 12 and don't eat after 7:30.
Yep.
Now, a lot of that's health-based. Just my mum had dementia and stuff like that. There's a lot of research that says fasting can help with that. So that's the reason for that, not any other sort of major reason. But yeah, they're the standards. For the week, what have we got? 7 days, 49. I hit 46 out of 49. So it's a pretty solid week. We're looking for 90%.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's good.
And I love, like a true podcaster as well, we tease the weight and then you just gave them a little taste, but you didn't give them the result. Maybe we hold the result to the end.
No, we can hold the result to the end.
We'll hold the result to the end. Standards are an interesting topic, and we'll talk a bit about that today. I want to ask you about your first exposure to standards. And you've coached football, you've introduced standards to teams and clubs, I'm sure, and I want to explore that with you. But I think your first exposure to anything in life can have a positive or negative effect. And I just wanted to put this on the table. My first ever job was in an upholstery factory. Very small business in Dandenong South. Mum and Dad had a couch reupholstered. The bloke dropped it off. He said, "Can you give me a lift?" I gave him a lift. "How old are you?" 19. What are you doing? University. Do you want a job? Doing what? Helping me? Okay. Next day, I was there working for him, right? So Neil Graves, the gentleman's name, he's still with us. Every year on my birthday, he sends me a text wishing me happy birthday and wishes my wife and my kids all the best health for the next year. Well, crazy.
That's a standard.
Good fella, right?
That's a standard. That's a habit, right? Great.
So Neil's background, he's Kiwi. He worked deep sea oil rig welding. Sacrificed a lot of family time to provide for their future, but in his mind, that was a standard he had to meet.
Yeah.
You probably got a picture of the sort of guy.
Yeah.
If I was late, he told me the first day, "Don't be late again." He said, I won't cop that.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. 2 days later, I walked in 2 minutes late. I had to be there at 9, I walked in 9:02. He said nothing. Picked up my tools, started to work, and I hear, "Fadoom!" I went, "What's that?" And then, "Fadoom!" I go, "Shit!" And he was shooting nails from a nail gun at my feet, and he said, "You get 1 for every minute you're late, and my aim will only get better. Don't be late." And I went, "Whoa, this guy is a psychopath."
Yeah.
But that's how rigid he was on his expectations of his staff. And it sounds crazy, but I worked for Neil for probably 4 or 5 years. And what I learned about him and his discipline and his life and the sacrifices he made and the standards he set himself to set his family up, which he did beautifully. Beautiful girls, super intelligent, having a good life. I thought, wow, you don't come across that too often.
No, you don't. Yeah.
And I think about getting shot at with a nail gun's a little bit traumatic. But my memories are fond of him.
Yes.
And my respect for him is so high because of the discipline and those standards.
Yeah.
What are your earliest expectations around, or exposure, I guess, to standards? Was there a coach or a mentor or somebody that put something on the table that went, wow?
Yeah, probably. I'd tell you who it was. It was actually Jonathan Brown, his old man, Brian Brown.
Right.
He was my first ever coach. And
a Warrnambool boy, of course, for those that don't know.
He was from Colac and then moved down to the Bull. And Brownie, I remember because my dad was chairman of selectors for him, and I remember Brownie used to, like, the standards that he set for that club were insane. You had to be dressed immaculately. You had to have your shirt tucked in. Like, this is the days before we all came in uniform and that sort of stuff.
Turns up to a game.
Turned up to a game, you know. Like, it was, you had to wear at least a pair of jeans as a minimum, if not a pair of slacks, and just the standards that he then set around what he needed to do to prepare, you know. The gag used to be, you know, like there was no rooting in Brownie's house from Thursday night onwards, right? So, that was kind of where it was at. They were the sort of standards that were set. That's how serious it was. That's how serious footy was. So, you know, that's my memory of standards being set. And, you know, and then back from that, then what I sort of started to learn as I started to evolve and get my own fitness right. So the times when I did have my fitness right, it's really interesting because it triggered that memory for me. Was double my standards, right? They're very similar to this. So I used to have to drink 2 litres of water. I'd have the exercise I'd do every day. I had my Warrnambool high school diary, and I had to go for a certain amount of runs, and I would write my times in the diary, and I knew what my times were, and I knew I wanted to beat them, and I fucking loved getting down there and then looking back, you know, that dopamine hitter going, oh shit, for 6 weeks at the end of the season, you know, my times were dropping like dramatically. You know, I was getting in under 4-minute Ks for 7K runs, and just getting better and better all the time. When I started, I was at 6.5, 7-minute Ks. You know, like I couldn't even run 4Ks in 28 minutes. So it's just really interesting how those standards then became that. When I look back on that time in my life, we often talk about flow, and when you find that your life's working at its best. That time of my life was when I felt like I was in flow. I got great results at school, and I did fuck all. Like, I was pretty lazy, right? But I got, you know, I got 90, whatever I got, 366 Anderson score back in the day. Like, and there was stuff that I probably didn't think I was capable of. But it's funny how those things flow when you get yourself in flow. But what led to the flow was some standards. And then everything kind of bolts on from there. And that's a lot of the work that talks about habits. And you talk about James Clear, and he says you've got to, you know, James Clear with Atomic Habits. How do we build this stuff on? Well, you've got to start with a basis of standards. The habits can't start if you don't have standards around what it is that you're going to stand for.
I often think like Neil's standards initially were a bit of a joke, you know, a bit like no shagging Thursday to Sunday. It becomes a bit of a joke because you're trying to place it within your context of looking out on the world and thinking, well, wow, it's a bit of a story to tell your mates, and well, that guy's a psycho or whatever else. Yeah. Is it fair to say that sometimes standards that you're exposed to, it takes a little bit of time for it to sink in and for you to realise the benefit of them?
Oh, shit, yeah. Well, have a look at me. I'm 131 kilos. I don't the standards that I should have been setting for myself. And even the 28 days leading into getting this started, when I made that call, I spoke to you on July the 3rd. I didn't get started till I think it was July 28th, right? And so I kind of just meandered through 25 days. Like, I could have easily gone, hey, this is the standard I want to set. But this is a really key aspect, I reckon, and this is one of the things that, you know, you've been exposed to, is this is the key of manifesting and understanding what's your identity, like who actually are you, what's your why, because if you don't know what your why is, you don't get any emotion. So this is where we've got to dream again, and we stopped dreaming. When I was 17, 18, 19, I was dreaming of playing AFL footy. Now, I never got there, but that dream was real, right? So I could put myself in that state, and I could go, that's the identity of that guy, right? Sometimes it's been difficult for me to do that with health, but I haven't had any problem with doing it with work and that sort of stuff. So if that makes sense, the key here is you've got to actually dream, and you've actually got to have some intention around what it is you want to do. That's what my experience is. Yeah, I don't know about yours, but when you know your why, then what happens is that's when you set your goals. Yeah, and then you go, okay, well, that goal means something. I'm doing that for a purpose, a higher purpose. So it's almost like the emotion comes from the dream, but then the motion comes from the goal, because you go, okay, that's where I need to get to. The next phase of that is then, what do I need to learn? Yep. And sometimes the learn is, okay, well, how am I going to get there? But the other thing that we really overlook is I've got to set the standards. So what do I need to learn? How do I get there? Yeah, okay, cool. What do I need to research in order for me to be able to make a plan? Because that's the next stage, right? But you really need to identify, what do I need to learn? And then how do I then invest in the standards that are going to create a habit? Yeah. And when I invest in the standards that create a habit, it's amazing how that then rolls. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So after a week of living to your standards, with something like this project, there's a numerical figure attached to each week. You know, you can look at it and say, oh yeah, shit, I've lost a kilo, I've lost 2.5, I've lost 3.5, I've lost 500 grams. So there is a numerical change that you would expect if you do those standards every week. For those that are watching and are thinking about this conversation, they're thinking, how am I going to apply standards in my life? I like the sound of this. I wouldn't mind revisiting some stuff to straighten me up in different areas. You might not get that result immediately.
Absolutely.
So what are we looking for? Like, what is it? Is it a feeling? Is it just the discipline of saying, yep, I've done it for a week, I've done it for 2 weeks, I've done it for 3 weeks? How do we, not reward, but spur ourselves on to keep on?
Yeah. I think there's layers to that question. But if we simply talk about habits, James Clear talks about automaticity. I hate that word. Automaticity, right? So about when do things
become... It's a race caller's nightmare.
It is,
It's a race caller's nightmare.
Has there been a horse called that?
If Matt Hill's listening, we won't call a horse.
We should. But now, the thing about this is, and this is where these numbers, and you start to do some research on these numbers, and I've been guilty of saying it takes 66 days. Well, the fact is, 66 days is actually there's been about 3 different studies that have been done. There was one in 2010, there was one in 2024, and most of them end up around that 50 to 66 days to make something automatic. So it's automatically, this is the way that I do things, Having said that, though, in those studies, there were people that were able to get there in 14 days, and then there were people that took, 200 days.
Cool.
Yep. So when we think about that, the point about the number is if we focus on the outcome, right? So this is where when we fixate on the goal, the goal's going to move.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what it is in life because the path isn't always linear. I think for me, after 7 days, I feel like it's already happened. I already feel like it's automatic. It's almost like in my body, I can feel when I've eaten 150 grams of protein. I can feel when I've eaten 1,900 kilos. I can feel when I've done the 10,000 steps. The only 3 I missed last week, the 3 standards I missed last week was one day I didn't get the protein because I'm not going to change dinners. I'm going to have whatever we cook at home. The other was a day where I just missed my steps by 3,000 steps. I got to bed and I went, shit, I haven't done my 3,000 steps. It was 9:30. I've had the sleepover. Which isn't a standard, but it kind of could be. But I've had my sleep over that. And then the other day was I missed doing the movement stuff when I was travelling. So, it's interesting, those 3 standards, though, I didn't really beat myself up. The first day I did, but once I did that, I went, no, it doesn't matter, right? 90% of my standards is where I'm at. So, to me, the answer to the question is focus on your standards. Focus on the 90% of you doing the right thing. Because it's all about the identity. And the fact that I feel like it's automated, when I look at those studies, I feel like I'm going to be at that 14 days a little bit, because I've done this shit before in my life. I know what I need to do. The question is going to be, how do I make it stick, right? But I think for everybody out there, that's the key, is focus on the process. You hear it all the time in sport, you hear it everywhere, and it's fucking painful almost. But when you focus on the process and the steps you need to take, as you know, with our coaching, what do we tell people to do on a week-to-week basis? Do the fucking reps.
Yeah, it's not too many things in life where if you don't do the work, you get the outcome. We are genuinely not handed things very often.
No.
Results don't land in your lap. So, doing the grind, and doing the work, and when it becomes that habitual part of life, that it's just part of your daily routine, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
But there's going to be times when it's not.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a couple there. So you're not beating yourself up about those, obviously. It's just that acceptance of, we had past it tonight, happy days, I'm back on tomorrow. It's not like you went and had 25 beers and... No.
And the interesting thing is too, look, I went to... one of the interesting parts about it was I actually went to a 40th and I went by myself and because Penn couldn't make it. So I went to mate's 40th and to be fair, I wouldn't have gone to too many 40ths without having half a dozen beers minimum, right? That's probably being kind. But I kind of got there and I went, what do I do? And it was a fancy dress party too, right? So I've gone as a fucking polar bear, right? And I'm on my own. And
I can see that.
The irony is, right, I've gone as a Bundy bear, right? So the irony of it was, I went up there because it's a guy that I've coached and I love him, Lee Bradbury, cracker, right? And he's actually referred a heap of people to me. So there were 5 or 6 people that were there that I've coached. So going up there, it was a really weird feeling going to that party. 160 people at 40th. I mean, come on.
Wow, that's a big 40th.
Mate, it's too many.
That's like a Greek wedding.
But you know what? When I said it was too many, then I got there and I started talking and circulating. Everybody feels like they're his best mate. He's just that guy, And anyway, he's a ripper. So But the point is, so I went up there and I was really quite nervous about how do I do this in the middle of what I'm doing. Yeah. Pretty much, I had one vodka and soda, and I had one beer at the function. I left, I don't know, he knows what time I left, but I left at 10. I started at 6 and I actually left at 10 because I had to fly out. And I made the decision to fly out at 7:30 from Canberra. So I had a 2-hour drive. I only had probably 4 hours sleep because I wanted to get back and coach the girls. And it's just amazing when I exited out and actually focused on what was most important for my health, how everything else fell into line. Whereas I could have easily had 10 beers, felt like shit, gone and coached the girls, done that poorly, yeah, as opposed to what actually happened, because I set myself some standards in one area. And I think that's what gets lost too. That's one of the other things that I it's just triggering me. You know, when you set standards in one area, how much it can impact your whole life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, given that quite a few people there have done some work with you and probably have done some work on themselves too, interested to hear their reaction when you weren't launching into a good time, because I did a stretch without, not without alcohol, but certainly like 1 or 2 drinks a week, that was it, for about 3 months last year. And when you go to social events, the reaction from people, like, what do you mean, what's wrong? Is there something up? Is your blood thing playing up? Like, what, it was concern around why you're not on the gas with it.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, is there something wrong with it?
Was it a different reaction with these people, given
not
that
really.
they're probably...
Not really, because I've coached them. So to be fair, I've got that coach relationship with them, if that makes sense. So I'm pretty close with a couple of the guys, but Lee and I have had a couple of nights out, but the other guys I haven't. So it was probably a little bit easier for me to step into that, if that makes sense. I could kind of be a bit invisible and no one really knew. And it kind of gets me one of those funny stories too. You know, like when I coach these things called house stories, right? Yeah. And this is where we go, hey, you know what? I don't know. You know when we get overwhelmed, or we've either got that thing that nags us all the time. And this is a really important part of this process, right? Is when I sit there and go, okay, well, shit, how am I going to get through something? How am I going to get through? For example, I've got a premiership reunion on Saturday week. Yep. And the thing about it is, there's a group of us that get together, and when we get together, it gets pretty loose. And they're still staying out to 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm like, fuck, that's not for me now.
Nice.
So, but when you do these house stories, right, the really interesting part about it is, and I probably shouldn't share this now, but because I might get me around. But so when I first started doing these house stories, I did a house story on. It was a catch up just after COVID, and we hadn't caught up with these guys for ages, and they were ready to let loose. And I was just like, I don't want to lose my weekend, right? I just don't want to lose my weekend. It was a Friday night, the boys were catching up. And so what I did was I actually put it through a house story, right? And when we talk about a house story, the reason this is important is because you've got to understand how you feel. So I was anxious about the night because I'm going, how do I have a good time and how do I, roll through that? So that's the first piece, right? The second piece of it, so I went, okay, but when you write it down, you validate it. Yeah? So you validate, you sit there and go, well, I'm feeling anxious about going. How do I prefer to feel? Well, I prefer to look forward to it. I prefer to feel good about going and not stressed about what might happen. Yeah? So when you get that clarity, you sit there and go, well, what do I really want to achieve? Well, what I really want to achieve is connection with my mates because I love these guys. Yeah? And so then I went, okay, so what are the actions I can take? Pretty freaking simple. Well, what I did was, and I'm probably giving a trick away here, I said, I'm going to drink vodka and soda, but I'm going to shout with no more than 3 people. So every time I went to the bar and I had to shout, I'd just get soda for myself and no one would know. Yeah? The other thing I did was I said, I may have given this one away. I said, I've got to leave at midnight because I've got to coach basketball at 7 o'clock. I've never coached basketball in my life.
Love it.
Right? So anyway, so the interesting part about it was because I completely changed and I knew I had my exit, I knew I was out, I wasn't stressed about anything that happened, I had the best night in terms of connecting with the guys, right? They might not remember it, but for me, it was awesome connection, yeah? And I left that night, had a great night, got out at 12 o'clock. The irony is you've got to be careful what you manifest because then Big Dave, friend of mine, friend of my daughter's, obviously, he actually rang me, the guy who was coaching, believe it or not, this is what happened. He rang me at it was actually at 8 o'clock. He rang me at 7:15 and said, mate, Daisy's sick, can you coach the girls today? I still had quite a few drinks, right? So I had to go and coach basketball the first time.
You're bringing it into your life.
I manifested the shit out of it, right? How funny is that, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's what happened. So But what I'm saying is how powerful is it?
Absolutely.
You know, when you get that choice and you get clarity around what you really want and how easy it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's often easier on your own because you can keep yourself on track. But in the social situations, is moving around, whatever it is that people are aiming towards or trying to tighten up in their life, it's when you get in that group mentality and say, come on, one more, let's get that extra, or let's do this, or let's do that. Could be a drink, could be food, could be whatever. Yeah, staying out a bit later. And I'm sure my wife won't mind me saying this, but Jazzy hasn't really drunk for 10 years. Yes. Probably since just before Daisy was born. And she used to get really anxious to go going to social events because people would be drinking, she wouldn't. Yeah. And just sort of started to pull back a little bit from those sort of things. We had a chat about it. She said, well, start off having a great chat with somebody, last you about 10 minutes, you can see them getting more and more pissed, and I know there's a point at the end I can't talk to them. Like, I'm just going to get nothing out of this, they're pissed, whatever. So she wanted to miss out on a social event, but didn't want to feel like that. Yeah. So we started going and getting to things pretty well on time. Yeah. So she had a great run of experiencing the night, chatting to everyone, seeing everyone she wanted to see. Helps when it's local, but it gets to that point of the evening, everyone's going down, she'll say, I'm just going to go home. I'm checking out, or we'll go home together. But it works. She's managed to overcome that feeling of, this isn't good, this isn't something I want to be in. Because you don't want to sacrifice, like that's a standard she set for herself, that she's a non-drinker. You don't want to sacrifice other parts of your life to meet those standards. So there's always ways to be, I don't know, not flexible, malleable, just to keep yourself feeling positive about it, that you're not restrictive. Yeah. So I think that will be something that comes up for you at times.
But I love that she's got those standards, right? And this is the thing, I've got standards around work. I've got standards around, it's really, like I come into this as if I'm some sort of freaking amateur at setting standards, when I've set so many standards in my life. But in this area, I've been able to tell myself a story that I'm no good with it. It's the same with drinking. It's the same with, and this is why, what's really interesting about this is everybody's got their dragons. Yeah. But the point is, it's amazing when the dragon's there. But going back to that 14 days, you know how we talked about 14 days before, about how long it takes to set the standard? What I find really interesting is that because I'd been manifesting, thinking about it, rolling through that process of feeling a little bit like the guy that was already there, how quickly the standards have latched on. Yeah. So if you're not clear on why you're doing it, if you're not doing it for you, if you're doing it for somebody else, if you're doing it because you're going to get something, that's generally when manifesting doesn't work. Yeah. So, and manifesting might sound like woo-woo or whatever, but we've all done it. We've all visualised something and gone, hey, no, that's happening. I'm making that happen. Yeah. It might have been meeting your missus. It might have been, getting the job that you wanted. It might have been buying the house that you wanted. We've all visualised it and manifested. We just don't realise we're doing it, right? It's neuroscience. So the point here is, I think the more time you spend sitting in that, and this is the thing that we don't consciously do, it's actually made it easier for me this time than it's ever been, because I've got better and better at that over time.
Yeah, and when the process gets boring, when being consistent is a bit of a chore, or it's not as sexy as the first few weeks when you're getting those significant numbers, in this case, as you drop them down. Having that goal front of mind, and remember, this is what we're doing, this is what we want. Yeah. That's going to get you through those stages. I imagine that's the inspiration that rolls. Yeah. Well,
I imagine it's the inspiration for Jazz, right? Sitting there going, hey, I know how good I'm going to feel tomorrow morning. I don't need to go back to that. I've made a decision that I'm not going to drink. Yeah. So I think that's, as I said, this is where, kind of that model we're talking about is, you've got to be able to dream it. You've got to have intention. You've got to be really clear on your intention, because, that's one of my favourite lines. I probably talk about it a lot. Is, it comes from a guy called Nir Eyal, and he wrote a book called Indistractable. And the really key component to what he says is that if you're not clear on your intention, you're permanently distracted. Because you are. Because you don't even know that what you're doing is what you want to do. Yeah. And how many of us are doing that?
Absolutely.
And that's that. And that's just life, right? Because we'll shine that flashlight on the next thing. Yeah, bang, bang, bang. We've got to shine the floodlight on it. And when we shine the floodlight on it, if we're programming that floodlight to say this is what's most important, then what will happen is we call this juggler. The juggler's going to sit there and go, hey, that's where you need to do. This is where you need to put your attention to that. Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
let's go back to the numbers. So give us the starting point and then what you are at the end of week 1. There's a little follow-up. I'm just curious as to where you've taken that result. What have you hit week 1?
I started at 131.5. And I hit 128.6, so I dropped 3 kilos. But
great.
I got 2.9. But like again, it's really interesting, you know. There's 2 things that come to mind, right? When you actually, and this is a great part about observing thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. Because this is what fucking derails us. Mm-hmm. The first thing I thought about was, I don't want to get excited about that because I got excited about shit before and I'll fail again. Yep. Right? So you go down that pathway, right? That's one choice, right? So again, this is where you start to recognise there's freedom of thought, right? Yeah, okay, cool. That's where I could go. Start beating myself up. Fucking, you got to stay on track because otherwise you fuck it up. The second is to go, celebrate it. That's really good. You know, like fucking awesome. Well done. Get really pumped about it. The third version is to know it's already happening. Mm-hmm. 98.9 is already happening. This is just a marker to say, pretty much the things you're putting in place, the standards you're putting in place are actually going to help you create the result you want.
Yep. And
that's where I'm feeling like it's really interesting, you know, that there's not really a lot of yes or anything like that. It's just, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a bit, it's
more of a quiet confidence than a celebration.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So again, without sounding too woo-woo, when you put yourself into the future version of you, that guy just goes, that's what you do.
Yeah.
This is how we fuel ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that guy that I'm stepping into, now, I'm actually living like that guy now. And that's another thing, when you read James Clear's book and, we're just throwing down that atomic habits line, well, that's what he talks about. You have to be the identity of the guy.
Yeah.
In the future, now. And that's what he does. He just sits there and goes like that. In actual fact, he's sitting there going, we probably shouldn't weigh that much. So, let's just get these standards right and eventually you'll get there.
So, in the first episode, we did chat about your family and your girls and how you felt about them watching you go through this process. Yeah. And there was a bit of shame, a bit of, that I've probably lost some trust because I've started this before and they've seen me go back to my old ways, etc. So did you share the result with them after week 1?
No.
How come? Not yet?
No, I'm just not. I mean, I think that one of them might have asked and I told them. Look, being honest, that's still the area that, when I that little piece of sharing that last week has been playing on the nanny lap. Like, it's just, the implications that has. You and I were talking about your family before. Yeah. Off camera, we were talking about your family before, and the environment you want to create for your kids, and I feel like. I try to get them into meditation, I try to get them into doing all these things. They see me do it. But probably the most visceral thing they can see is me and what I look like.
Yep.
And they see, a guy who says he played footy and could move okay, but then they see me now. And so, for me, it doesn't matter what I tell them about dreams, goals, what you need to learn, set a plan and take action, when the most obvious thing sitting in front of them is the way I look. Mm-hmm. And them seeing me let myself down on probably the goal that I've spoken about most. It's not like I spoke about revenue goals or coaching goals or anything like that with them at home. The things we generally talk to our kids about are health, right? And so it's really interesting because I haven't really given them any reason to believe me. Mm. And so, the reason I share that is because that's one of the things I've also, when you elevate yourself in terms of manifesting over time, what you also learn is that you sometimes have to look at what you don't want, mm-hmm. And then move into what you, and that's as you sort of go through levels of it, you manifest what you don't want and then you replace it with what you do, because you sort of got to feel that pain, and I'm feeling that pain with that because I feel like, and it makes me nervous about putting this stuff out there as well. Like there's still that twinge of, should I be putting this out there? Because what do the kids say? Or are the kids saying that the only way you can look after your health is if you share it with everybody? But you know, we know the reasons why I'm doing it, but that's probably the big thing that messes with my head in the background.
Yeah, because families, you know, for most, it's such a source of strength, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's friends or your partner or whatever it is for people, they've always got that anger that when things get tough, they get that strength from. And I think it comes the same with the wins. When you've done something good, you want to turn to those people and say, hey, guess what I did today?
Yeah.
You know, we practice around our house and we sit and have dinner around the table. What's the best thing that happened today? Go around the table. Or what was it? Did something challenging happen today? What do you want to talk about that? And okay, smaller kids, it goes off in all different directions and whatever else, but it means something to the person. That's the point. However big or small the win or the challenge was, we're not trying not to say loss, it meant something to them. So just getting it out there and speaking it out actually has value.
Oh, 100% it does. I guess, you know, for me, there's also, you know, when you think about raising your kids, there's, you know, some great advice I got was that it's 33% nurture, 33% guidance, and 33% limit setting. Yeah. And when I look at that, I go, yeah, okay, shit. Yeah, do I need to share anything with them? I don't think I do, because I'm a parent. Yeah. What I need to be able to do is kind of show them, if that makes sense, that this is something that's going to happen. And again, you know, what's the reason for sharing it? Well, the reason for sharing is I think it can help a lot of guys already in our ecosystem and a lot of people out there to understand how this can work to tame the biggest dragons that we've got. It just fucking sucks that you can see mine.
But there's also that depth of sharing and I guess the age appropriate, relationship appropriate part of it as well.
There is, yeah.
You know, I remember it was kind of coincided with my grandparents passing away, like the last of my grandparents passing away. There was a Christmas that we celebrated, and siblings I refer to it as drunk Christmas.
Yeah, right.
Because mum and dad, it was the first one where there wasn't a grandparent at the table.
Yeah.
And it was almost like this release of grief, but also there's this new phase of life that we're now moving into, and this was a special day, and now it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
But the conversations we started to have with mum and dad and what they started to share with us about some challenges at different times of their life, the next day we was looking at each other going, did we talk about that? I didn't know mum and dad nearly lost everything. Did you know that?
Yeah.
What? They were returning Christmas credits. What the hell?
Yeah.
And you get this insight, then you bring it up with them, and it's kind of, there was a bit of it, but it's back again.
And we're putting that barrier up again.
Since then, it's just become, they've shared more with us when it's time for us, when we met a similar challenge that they could relate to, and it was time to say, here's some wisdom.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something to think
I
about
think
as well through this.
it
is just them seeing you doing it at the moment is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They don't need to look at you and go, shit, Dad's t-shirt's hanging off a bit more loosely than it was. Them seeing you do it, I think for teenagers especially, boys or girls, doesn't matter. It's like, oh, that's proof. You do what you say you're going to do.
Then they're going to ask, right? Then they're going to ask what happens. But it's interesting too, like the other thing for me, like everything you said, like in terms of, you know, what do you share, what don't you share, all that sort of stuff. The only other thing that I add to these, I realise too that, and there's a lot of layers to this, but every time something goes well in my life, I want to share it with someone. Like I have to share it, you know. So another example, when I was in Bateman's Bay the other day, my fucking head was scrambled. I was getting really stressed about all of this, right? And even going, shit, you know what's going on with these? Like, why am I even doing the podcast every week? It's so much work, and like, what am I going to say, and how are we going to work it out, and all this sort of stuff, and how do I make sure that people want to hear it? I was just in a mess, right? And I went, just go and do what I need to do, and I went for about an hour's walk, and anyway, I missed the frigging track I wanted to go on, and I started to get pretty shitty, and anyway, then I just took a couple of deep breaths, did some breathing, and I saw this, this apparition of just this seat. There was a park bench that was just sitting facing the bay. So I went and sat down there and I did a meditation, and oh my God, I was able to, and it was a forgiveness meditation, and I just had this release of all this stuff. Like, it was just so empowering without going into too much detail. There's a lot of stuff about just letting it all go. And to a degree, I think that's had a big impact on how I'm feeling this week, and how I do actually feel moving forward. And this is where that line came. You know, it was like I wanted to share it. I wanted to record something so that we could share it in here, and I might even share a little bit of it. But then the other thing about it was I've also got to keep some stuff for me. Like that's the other thing. Keep some stuff for me. Like because it's me that matters. It's my standards that matter, if that makes sense. So rather than sharing everything, fucking getting it all out there and going, and that's what I'll do with the kids. Oh, look what I did, look what I did. You know, like as Penny says, you know, you come in here and you clean the dishes and you do the place properly, and you come and tell me, oh, did you see what I did? You know, like what the fuck? Like just do it, if that makes sense. So for me, that's a lesson as well. You know, like that I maybe need to drag it back a little bit. But this is all part of personal awareness and learning. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you're a sharer or not, Shark.
Oh, depends how many beers I've had. Or coffees. That's the other one. Jesus, the head just go, the mouth just spitting it out, and you go, hang on, what did I just say? Oh, no, absolutely. And I think looking at people in my life, I know my wife and I talk about absolutely everything, and that's great. A great relationship with my parents, and so grateful for that, and my siblings for that. But I've got a couple of really good mates in my life that I know I could ring them with absolutely anything, and they ring me with absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment, there's no anything.
Yeah.
Just listening or just talking it out.
Yeah.
Not trying to solve a problem. We've all got those mates. You mentioned a challenge that you've had. Bang, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
I've done this. Why don't you do this? Why don't you try that?
Yeah.
Which is an innate way to stop somebody that you care about
talking to you,
feeling like that anymore. You know. But you want to jump in and solve
because
the
we're
problem.
fixers, right? As men in particular, we want to fix it. We've got to fix it. You know?
I think that can stop people from sharing stuff.
100% it can.
If you
absolutely
go to somebody and Juzzy was a great educator.
Try it with your wife.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
How many times does your wife tell you something and you try and fix it, and they're like, "That was a fucking wasted conversation." You sit there and go, "But hang on, I've got the solutions for you."
Yeah.
Want to hear it?
No.
So it's really interesting learning how to listen, and I think that's something, about the oversharing stuff too, is how much do I share.
But if you strike a good listener, and this is the beauty of a podcast, I don't know how people are just listening, they can't ring back and tell you. Well, you might have some mates that hear a certain thing and want to provide some feedback. I don't know if we've got a comment section, mate. We might have to put
I'd love to get one, mate.
But if you put yourself out there sometimes to people in your life, and you get that solution-based reaction, it can make people go back into these shows.
Said it can, it's a great point.
So I think this process, and saying, what am I going to talk about every week? Well, we've just done week 2, and I think we've covered heaps of ground. Next week's week 3. We should put a little, what a meaningful number. Like, I'll think of 33, it's low dirt for me all day, every day. Right. So that's the significance, right? I don't know, year 34 is David King pops to mind for me, but
it's the first one that comes to mind. 34. It used to be my PIN number.
Oh yeah? David King used to be your PIN number.
Well, I got 3404 as my PIN number many years ago, and I went, how do I remember that? And
David King
and Ross Glenn.
I hope it's not your PIN number anymore.
No, it's not anymore.
You may have just overshared.
Not anymore.
But you know what I mean? Like, you take a light-hearted view to each week like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it rolls in.
Nah, mate. Look, this is fun. I hope it's useful. But the best part is, really selfishly, it's useful for me because I'm reflecting on my journey and I'm learning, and it's actually making me a better coach. So it's. One thing I do want to clarify though is my family's really supportive. Like I've got,
of course.
It's not that they're not supportive. It's just more that for me, there's that fear of letting them down, and it's not. I don't feel like I will this time. I'm really confident that it's happening. Well, it already is happening, right? And it will happen. But it's just that I want them to make their decision when they trust me again. I don't need to tell them. If that makes sense, I don't need to ask.
Yeah, and that's part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, what is it, paganism, wasn't it? If you're good enough, you won't have to ask.
Yeah. Correct. And mate, if you slip up, they're not going to shoot a nail down at you.
No, they might.
I'll speak. If I walk in with a Makita case one week,
that's what you're doing.
Then you know it's on. Mate,
Love it,
week
mate.
2 in the
Thanks,
back.
mate. Week 2. Good work, mate. Well done. Thank you. And yeah, let's keep the standards rolling.
Absolutely.
It works.